Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. Tonight's episode, Kickin' It, where we're covering action films of all kinds, specifically from the 80s and 90s. And tonight we have a gem, Samurai Cop from 1991. I'm your host, Rob. With me is the real Dr. V. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Doing all right.
So, one cult movie that we had not gotten a chance to see is a movie about a San Diego good-looking, all-American policeman who somehow had been trained in the ways of the samurai, gets recruited to investigate cocaine drug lords. And this is a really weird, off-putting movie. It's a must-see in my book. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of some other B or C level type action films there too, but ultimately extremely low budget type film. It comes through in it with really bad acting, horrible lines, really bad scenes. The dubbing is atrocious. There's no special effects in here, despite limbs being chopped off. There's a bunch of beautiful women where it's implied he's banging like all of them. And it's really like a high schooler's wet dream movie, you know, one that hasn't gotten laid and knows the realities of the world, but such is life. This movie should have come out about 5 years earlier in the 80s and it'd be an instant classic. That's how I think of it. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, I think this movie would have been a whole lot better if you would have got a different actor for the main role. I mean, they're kind of getting like that Miami Vice kind of vibe going on. You got the black guy, token black guy here, played by Mark Fraser, who actually was pretty good. He's stereotypical, in his lines, but the whole thing is this guy, Joe Marshall, played by Matt Hannon, is supposed to be like this hippie cop, or he's a samurai, or something like that, or
Samurai.
But the long hair. I was like, dude, you're more or less like a beach bum surfer, and they hire. I guess I don't think was he a cop at all, or
Yes.
did they? I thought they brought him on. They brought him in from like something else, from like the help.
They brought him. Well, they just mentioned quickly that they brought him from somewhere else because he's a specialist in this, so he alone may be able to know what's going on here. You know, the outside kind of help in a way, like a consultant, a samurai consultant.
Matt Hannon, I was looking at their heights. He's like, I think he's like 6. Well, he's got to be taller. He's got to be taller than Melissa Moore. She's like 6 feet tall. She plays the blonde policewoman, the one he hooks up with them in the beginning of the movie. She's in a helicopter. He's like, it's up and ready. And he's like, keep it warm for me. And she's like, oh, I'll keep it warm for you. I was just like, there's some very vulgar lines in this. So I was like, it's cheesy. You can tell it's low budget.
I wouldn't say vulgar, but you're surprised that how open they are sexually speaking.
And I'm thinking, like, you're a cop and you're on a police line, you'd both get fired for that. It's called sexual harassment. but anyway, Matt Hannon does not look like he'd be in a samurai cop. He's pretty freaking tall. I guess he was kind of thinking like, well, if Seagal can do it, I can do it too. That's the only I could think of,
No, it was a super cheap movie, and it was just one of those somebody knows somebody, and they talk to each other. Okay, boom, let's do it.
Yeah.
And he's a good-looking guy, great physique. I mean, he looks like an action star, except for the fact is he doesn't know any martial arts, which doesn't really stop a lot of people. But in the 80s, to your point, with just a tremendous amount of martial arts movies we had with JCVD, with Van Damme, Seagal, all that is like, okay, you can't really compete, so it has to kind of go super B-level here, and they really upped up the cheese factor for it, too. So I know you mentioned kind of Miami Vice, definitely late 80s, early 90s thing with the acid-wash jeans with the polo shirts.
Yeah,
well, the movie's so cheap, the guy basically had cut his hair at the end of the movie, but then he had to go back and do a ton of like reshoots or whatever, and so he's clearly wearing a wig and a lot of them, and at first, the first scene you see him talking with his partner, and you're like, that's a wig? Is this supposed to be a joke? Is it supposed to be a mullet? I don't get it. Is it just a bad camera shot? And it's like this through half the movie where some of the scenes are like in some art. I mean, that's just the sheer joy of watching this barely pieced together film, is that there's so many effects that you go, I don't know if they could get away with that today. Like so basically what it is you got this drug lord, and he's actually somebody we've seen before in martial arts films, but he's like a B or C level guy. He did all the stunt coordinating, but he's like leading, he's like the main henchman for the bad guy, the cocaine drug lord. And he gets so pissed off because in this initial bust where they bring in Samurai Cop is a bunch of his people died. So he says, I want you to find him. I want you to kill him. I want you to decapitate him. Bring his head. I want it right here on my piano. And he's serious. It's not just a line. It's like, okay, so yeah, you definitely see some limbs chopped off, but it's the really bad. Oh my God, I'm holding my arm, but you can see it, folded in half.
When I saw that, I was like, you just chopped the guy's arm off. That's, dude, get your reprimanded. Well, he was gonna shoot me. No, dude, like the dude, like you could have just like didn't have to cut his arm off, and the guy just died there.
Well, it's kind of the whole point, and so they have this really weird kind of chase scene or whatever, and then the guy at the end comes out of it and he's completely on fire, rolling around. And apparently, if you go back and you read some of the interviews or listen to him with that scene. Yeah, the guy knew he was going to jump out of the van, the stuntman. He's going to be on fire. So it was up to the two actors to like go find the extinguishers and put him out. So if you watch that scene again, it's really weird because the guy's laying on the ground like, put me out, put me out. And the guys are running over there to put him out. And he's kind of lifts his head up and looks around. And they put like a blanket on top of him. It's like, there's no way you could do that today. And again, this is the early 90s, 30 years ago. So very, very cheap level effects, but that's the kind of film it is, and that's what you kind of expect. So it's one of those, it's so good, it's entertainingly bad films because they're not trying to be serious. They're trying to be like just good enough. I mean, and so to me, I'm getting the vibe that you're looking at it like, oh, this movie really, really sucks. They tried and it really failed. Where I'm going, no, they didn't try. They just barely got it together. And here's what we've got. Because let me ask you, is it a fun movie to watch or not?
There are some fun scenes in it, but I was like, dude, okay, we've already had the sex scene. Now there's another one. Now there's another one. And the only one that was even close to being a sex scene was the bad guy, the white guy, samurai guy. Oh, that was it. But otherwise, it was just like, oh, I'm just gonna rub you as you lay there in your banana hack. And I'm like, I was like, come on. I'm like, I mean, obviously, eventually the girl probably didn't want to do it anymore. But I thought she was actually a Playboy playmate, but I'm not familiar.
She's beautiful, really gorgeous.
Melissa Moore.
Yeah,
maybe she's a fitness model, something like that.
Well, it's more of I don't know how you want to say it. It's one of those unintentionally goofy movies, and it reminds me of a movie we covered with YK Kim called Miami Connection that was shot on a micro budget here in Orlando, Florida in the 80s. You got a lot of University of Central Florida ground shots as well as downtown Orlando. Obviously, it was a different time then than now, but back then in the early 90s, action movies were really going away. So despite a few more films coming out, they were just not as popular as they were for whatever reasons. But for here, this movie is so cheap. They shot everything during the day. There's no night shots to it. There's some scenes in there where they didn't have enough tape. So the really bad lines that are like, yes, I want you to come over to the da 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 da. They left it in, and it's like, oh my God, they're not even saying no, do it with more energy, do it with less energy, doing it like you really want to make sweet love to her, do it like you're really mad at the guy. There was no gratuitous reason until you find the right take for it. It's that thin of a film to it, but I thought it was interesting because I had only seen clips of it. I hadn't really seen too much of it, and actually going back watching, I go, this is the kind of film that you just gotta watch it once when you're feeling goofy and you want to be entertained and you want to take something too seriously.
It's a one and done.
Yeah. This is the look.
Or you get your friend to watch this, and you're knowing what it is, but your friend has no idea. You pop it in and just watch his reaction.
Well, it's a perfect movie actually if everybody knows that it's bad, and I know there's a sequel, which we may cover at some point. Don't want to really get into that because it's definitely different. But it's just one of those films that had gotten important later on because somebody actually found the print for it later, and they kind of grew on the cult circuit a little bit. So going back in time and checking out some older films that did not make a lot of money, were not really successful, or maybe you didn't see them until really late at night on HBO or Cinemax. This is one of those kind of films too, but definitely a midnight movie type feel to it. Do you have a favorite scene?
Let's see, when they're going after Frank, well, she's his partner, like, you know, they're like, we don't know where Joe Marshall is. He's like, oh, the address is in the pocket. He's like, you like to cut off things, so you know, how about I cut something off of you? It's like, you know, it's like I was just like, oh. And then like it's that scene was just kind of like, it's actually pretty staged well, but it was, it's kind of like it was gonna happen. It's like, I was thinking like, it's like that guy gonna cut his dick off. I'm not sure what's going on here. It's like, but obviously he's able to get away. But I also like Cranston Kumro. He's the guy at the end takes Jennifer hostage. She's the other blonde. That he's like, you stupid sentimental Americans. Like, It's like, it's like your emotions, take control of you. And then the guy, and then Frank grabs a gun and shoots him. He's like, that guy's an idiot. I'm wearing a. He reveals it. So I'm like, the difference between me and him, I'm wearing a bulletproof jacket. But I was kind of shocked though. Like, it was like, here we see the main character Joe Marshall. He's making out with Peggy, the police cop, and then later on, like because they're all over each other. And then there's a scene where the bad guys come up and like they put her down on the stove and then they pour like the hot like butter on her like over her. And then that's it. You don't see her meanwhile, where's Joe? Banging, he's trying to bang Jennifer. I'm like, wow, it's like he's just a douche.
No, he's not a douche. That's really laid back 60s, 70s style.
I know, but they're trying
to looking guy and all the ladies are crazy for him.
It's not a bad look for him. It's not a good look because
great look.
When you're committed to another girl like there,
he's not committed. They were just friends with benefits.
How do you know that? She doesn't.
He's no ring on his finger. Plus, it's the late 80s, early 90s. This is
1991.
Right.
There should be some more dignity.
Oh no, that's totally how it was, and that's how every guy wish women would act to him at work and outside and everything too. And it's like a B or really a C level type Lethal Weapon. Let's say. I think that was a good.
Don't you dare compare this to Lethal Weapon? Yeah. How dare you?
But it is. I mean, you watch these two, you're like, okay, he's the crazy guy.
In a sense, we're at Lethal Weapon 2, where the girl dies, and then he can move on, right?
I said C level. I didn't say B level. It reminds me a little bit of Kung Fury. What do you think about that comparison?
Kung Fury had the cheesy one-liners, and then I had like the bad martial arts. And then of course you had the hot babes.
Right.
So it's kind of like the same script, almost a little bit different though.
Yeah, Kung Fury just had the benefit of better special effects and CGI at the time, and a vision where this one was more in film. But it's like a spiritual predecessor of it.
You know what it is? Because Kung Fury had the power glove.
Anyway, yeah, Samurai Cop. It's a weird film. It's definitely a pulp type film. It's definitely something worth watching. You got to feel. It's a movie that if you want to start feeling stupid and you want a little bit of that 80s feel, go check it out. I actually think that Miami Connection with Waikiki that we've covered is a very similar film, but a much better film just because of the action sequences. This is more of the 80s spectacle type of things where you're going to have a car chase scene. You're going to have some beautiful women. You're going to have what's the name of the bad group? The Katana Group or something. And then they're doing cocaine. I mean, it's like, okay, you can't get more 80s than that. That's fine.
Also, a shout out to the late Robert Z. Dazar from Maniac Cop. He was the bad guy in Maniac Cop. He's also a bad guy here too. He fought against. You can tell him because he has a deformed like face.
Oh, okay.
The big chin. Yeah,
it is him. Okay.
He played his officer as Matt Cordell in the Maniac Cop movie, and in the sequel. So he was in the. So I was kind of like, oh, there is some known actors in here. Like this must, like you said, it's a C-list movie. They probably got paid for it, moved on. Yeah.
Well, definitely a cult film. Definitely worth a watch too. Unfortunately, if you put it out today, it'd be better than a lot of things that are out today. I mean, just entertainment value.
I almost thought that, if they would have made him instead of man-handed character Joe Marshall, that'd be a cop. Make him like a guitarist, from a band. you know, and then have him like, you know, just like using his guitar, like when he's on using when he's on playing guitars, you know, and making sweet love to the ladies, he's out fight crime.
You know, they tried that, right? In all seriousness,
Really,
it was called cop rock, but we don't talk about cop rock. On the show. All right, guys, there you have it. Samurai Cop from 1991, a very small film that not a lot of people saw. The sequel should be interesting because it just got that much legs as a cult film, and that's the wonderful thing about the 80s or even the early 90s. You'd have something like this as a passion project that could get done and slapped together and be entertaining enough that you go, what the hell are they trying to do? And it's not poisoned by the fingers and thumbs of everybody trying to get some by, you know, everybody who's financing and all that. So I really appreciate what they tried doing in this film. You might consider it like a grad school level type film. That's fine, but there's something to be said for, yeah, I was in Samurai Cop. It's worth watching, and the performances alone too. So Samurai Cop 1991.
And a bad guy gets set on fire.
Yes, and it's a good fire scene too. It's not just a quick blip too. It's like
let me grab my extinguisher in the blanket. They just randomly have.
The dialogue is choice. All right, for Dr. Venkman and myself and everyone here that involved the Xtreme Movie Show, have a good night, and as always, stay extreme. Good night, everybody.
Xtreme.